Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyate Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai Lord Priya. Okay, so we started this 17th chapter. We did up to verse 10, where we were talking about food, the three different kinds. So, why is Krishna talking about these things here? Why did Krishna bring up, why did he wants to analyze Yajna, Dana, Tapa, and Ahar in the three modes? Anybody remembers that? What's the purpose of this chapter? Why to bring it in here? Who can tell me?
Is that for to get out of the cycle, Prabhuji, the cycle of life and death? Because yajna is basically, if something is not going right, you do yajna to get rid of that, right? It's a remedy. Dan is also one type of remedy, right?
Yeah, but I mentioned something specific about how do we interact with this creation, and Yajna, Dana, Tapa, each one of them had a relationship to it. How we interact with this creation. No one remembers that? I mentioned about how we have we have three different circles, right? So one is the body and the mind. Then
It's a medicine for
so,
our yeah. Go ahead.
yeah. So there, when we relate to this body, we do tapa for that, austerity. And then when we relate to this, our surrounding environment, for that is dan, charity. And then to interact with the higher beings, demigods, that's yajna. So that's why Krishna is elaborating, because this is how we're interacting with this creation. That was something I'd highlighted, if you all remember. So yes, so that was the reason why Krishna speaks about these three specifically. Yajna, Dana, Tapa, and then food is that's the how does consciousness interact with matter? So the basic interaction between matter and consciousness is food. So that's why which kind of food we consume is defined by how the modes are affecting us. So that was the reason. Does anybody remember that, or did we miss it completely? No one remembers what we discussed in the next last meeting. So then we'll start with the 11th verse, where now Krishna is going to talk about sacrifices. Okay. No, was it 11th? Did we? Oh, yes, 11th. Yes. So the 11, 12, and 13 is about sacrifices. So the 8, 9, and 10 were about food. Okay. So now this is about sacrifice. So now the whole concept of sacrifice, if you could boil down into one sentence, sacrifice means that what I can use for my own pleasure, I use it for a higher purpose. That's what, if you could give one sentence meaning of sacrifice, right? And this mood is everywhere. It's not like we ISKCON followers only do sacrifices. No, even Christians do that. Christians have a lot of rituals and they do charity, right? So principle of sacrifice is universal and it has different expressions, different people express in different ways. And Bhagavad Gita is pointing it out that that we all are interconnected with this cosmos. For example, getting water, I just have a bottle of water in front of me. It's not in my control alone, right? There has to be some the heat has to evaporate the water. It has to go up to the clouds rain, and the fresh water comes in, and then so it's a whole process, right? So Prabhupada explains the concept of yajna as kind of taxes, right? When I take something, I have to give something in return, right? In the third chapter, Krishna specifically talked about sacrifices, right? Anad bhavanti bhutani, parajanyad anna sambhava, and yagyad bhavati prajanyo, yagya karma samudbhava. That we all subsist on food grains, and then food grains come from rain, and rains are performed by sacrifices. And how and where is sacrifice coming from? Krishna tells us that in the third chapter. That was the 14th verse. He says that yajna is born of prescribed duties. So when we do our prescribed duties properly, which includes doing the proper austerities and sacrifices, then the universe also reciprocates with us. And sometimes people ask me, not sometimes, but people have asked me this question. Somebody was asking me that, hey, third chapter, Krishna says, rain is produced out of sacrifices, yajna. But then there is so much rain in the United States and in India, there is, sometimes there's drought and so forth. So when non-performance of yajna, it doesn't mean there'll be a stoppage of rain, but it can mean there'll be erratic supply. When the Brijvasis, they stopped the yajna to Indra, there was excessive rain. That's what Indra did. Point is, when there is no yajna, there'll be a disruption of supply. There's a lot of ecological devastation happening. So yajna. So yajna is the principle by which we cooperate with this cosmic energy, with this cosmic government that Krishna has created. And the practice will vary based on time, place, and circumstances. When without hankering for results, one does yajna, and it is what is expected, that is in the mode of goodness. So the whole idea that Krishna is presenting here is that the three modes affect us internally also and externally also. Right? For example, alcohol, illicit sex, they are external. Right? But here, Arjun's question is more internal. So people have some faith. He said people have some faith, but the faith is not scriptural. So he was talking about more internal things, right? So that's why Krishna has brought up this concept of yajna, which is a very internal concept. But why we are doing yajna? So now Krishna here in this verse, he'll start talking about how to perform that yajna. So of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed according to the direction of scripture as a matter of duty by those who desire no reward is of the nature of goodness. So this is what I'm expected to do, and I will do it. So this universe is a government. There are a lot of subtle forces beyond our human conception that can shape our human conditions and which are ordained by higher beings. So yajna is a means by which I harmonize with those higher beings. So when we do it without the anticipation of fruits, that is, yajna is in a mode of goodness. It purifies us, it elevates our consciousness. As long as we are looking for material results, we'll be bereft of spiritual results. So we have to stop craving for external results. Right? Sometimes some people do yajna. We read this in the 16th chapter, that there was this saying that adhyo bijanvan asmi ko anyo sadrisho maya yaksha dashyami modisha iti ajnana vimohita. That the demoniac people think that I'll do some sacrifice and I'll gain a lot of respect for it. That's not the purpose of yajna. So Prabhupada is saying that everyone thinks that there is no use in going to you. Where was I? Where was I when you stopped hearing me? Does somebody remember? Where were we?
Yagya, there's two. Yagya purifies us and elevates us.
Oh, okay. So yeah, okay. So yeah, yajna purifies us, and it also elevates our consciousness. Yes. Okay. So not a lot. So yeah, as long as we are looking for material results, we'll be bereft of spiritual results. We have to stop craving for external results. Sometimes people do yajnas when they're craving for results. We read this in the 16th chapter. There was this verse, Adhyo Vijanvanasmi ko anyo sadrishamaya yaksha dashami modisha yajnan vimohita. So people who are ignorant or who are demonic, and they think that by doing some yajna, some external demonstration, I will be able to gain a lot of benefit out of. But that's not what Krishna is telling us here. And Prabhupada in the purport is saying, everyone thinks that there is no use in going to the temple just to worship God. That's not what Prabhupada taught us. We don't go to the temple just to get some economic benefits. No, that's not the goal here. Obviously, we can present our challenges. Prabhupada has told us that also. We should very clearly tell Krishna that, Krishna, this is the problem I'm going through. That strengthens my relationship with Krishna when I become very, very open to Krishna. It's very much like to open my heart to Krishna. So yes, we should say that. But then the goal should not be that, oh, I'll only go for economic benefits. Once that is attained, Krishna, I'll see you. I'll come back when I have more problems. That's not the way we do it. So, yeah. So one should go simply to offer respect to the deity. That will place one in the mode of goodness. Yeah. So that's what the way Prabhupada is telling us how to do sacrifice. So that was the 11th verse. Mode of goodness, sacrifice. Okay, so then, but the sacrifice performed for some material benefit or for the sake of pride or chief of the Bharatas, you should know to be in the mode of passion. When one is attached to the fruits, there is an attachment to the results and also to being the doer. I am the doer. I am doing yajna. Also, everybody should know that I am the one who's doing this yajna. So this attachment to the material result, abhisandhai, Krishna is using the word abhisandhai, attachment to the material results, is the problem. That's the problem. That material doership. So there is abhisandhai and dambhartham. So dambhartham is doership. There's a dambha, pride for the sake of. So when somebody is doing sacrifices in the mode of passion, it's primarily attachment to material results, abhisandhai, and doership, dambhartham. See how pious I am, see how virtuous I am, how cultured I am. One is obsessed with their own greatness. Right? So attachment to both result and doership is in the mode of passion. So I'm trying to get the results by whatever I'm doing, right? Eating, sleeping, waiting, depending. I'm trying to get all the results for myself. Getting them in a better way through religion. That's the mentality of a person in the mode of passion. Then this is the ignorance part. Any sacrifice performed without regard for directions of scripture, without distribution of prasadam, spiritual food, without chanting of Vedic hymns and remuneration to the priests, and without faith is considered to be in the mode of ignorance. Viddihinam. Viddihinam. It's without scripture, without following the scripture. Or Shishthanam. Without distributing any prasadam. So generally, whenever any sacrifice is to be performed, that time there should be distribution of prasadam. In the Govardhan Leela, once Krishna picks up the mountain, then there is food after that. Food was distributed to everybody. Srila Prabhupada, even in the earlier days when he didn't have any money, he didn't have any guarantee of his own food, but he would always cut an apple and distribute it to all the people who had come. At least one slice of apple to everybody. So that's how Prabhupada demonstrates to how should we live our life in Krishna consciousness. So, right. So then, when there's no mantra is being chanted, mantra hinam adakshinam. So there's no mantra is being chanted, and no dakshina is given to the priest who has done the puja. Right. And then, and the most important thing is Shraddha Virahitam. There is no Shraddha in the process. Shraddha is faith. You're just doing it for the sake of doing it. Right? Such sacrifice is in darkness, it's in ignorance, it's a demoniac mentality. It leads to inauspiciousness for everyone because this is just a sacrifice in name only. It doesn't lead any good for anyone, it leads to harm ultimately. Right? So, this is, yeah. Prabhupada is saying faith in the mode of darkness or ignorance is actually faithlessness. It's considered to be no faith. Right? So, you all must have come across people who come to the temple, they're really very disturbed, and they pray, and Krishna gives them what they were asking for, and then they stop coming to the temple. And I personally know many such people. So that shouldn't be the mentality why we are coming to Krishna. So yes, so these are the three types of sacrifices, how they should be done. Okay, so let me ask you all. Sorry, there was a question. Any thoughts?
Yes, Prabhuji, it says, right, is actually faithlessness.
Mhm.
But what I remember when we were discussing in the last session, when we were talking about faith, right, one thing that you mentioned was there is no concept of faithlessness that exists in the word, right?
Mhm.
So how do I relate to that and this now?
Well, what I was speaking I was speaking from perspective to say that people who are atheistic, right? They also have faith that God does not exist. So they
Yes.
also have faith in some form. So the
Yes.
concept of faith exists in everybody, even like an animal, right? So you feed a dog, then the dog has this faith that tomorrow also I'll get food, and so the dog comes back again tomorrow. Here, what Prabhupada means, he's talking about the faith in scriptures. The faith that is being referred to here is about scriptural injunction specifically. So when I mentioned about it, I was talking in a more generic term that even people who claim that they don't have faith in things, that can be that they have faith in the opposite aspect. But here, when Prabhupada says faithlessness, he's saying that people who are in a mode of darkness, they don't have faith in scriptural injunctions. So their so-called faith can be is just like faithlessness in scriptural injunctions. That's the way. So this is specifically about scriptural injunctions, where what I gave you was more of a generic thought that people have faith in something or the other.
Yes, Prabhu. That makes sense. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
You're welcome. Okay, so yeah, so what I was thinking is, you all are familiar with the story of Eklavya, I'm hoping. Anybody who doesn't know the story of Eklavya? Okay, you all know that.
Yes, Prabhuji. We
Yeah.
heard.
Okay. So now, as we all know, Eklavya had cut off his thumb and given it to Dronacharya. Can you all think? Let's use this as an exercise. What was his sacrifice in the mode? What mode was it in? Where will you put it? If someone asks us that, and nowadays there is a trend I've noticed. People are glorifying all the negative characters of Bhagavatam and Mahabharata. Somebody comes and says Duryodhan was doing the right thing and Karna was a good warrior. All that. There's so much of nonsense going on. So, but then I just wanted to understand. What do you think? Where does his sacrifice sit? Which mode would you put it in?
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna.
Maybe his sacrifice is in mode of passion, like because he wanted to get Dronacharya as like his master Gurudev, but Dronacharya first didn't accept him, but he like he wanted to prove that he got him as a Gurudev, and he is his disciple, so he can give him the Guru Dakshina. So maybe in mode of passion.
Okay.
Hare
Okay.
Krishna.
But just one thing I would suggest you. Whenever you are saying things, say it with full confidence. Don't say maybe, because fine, I'm okay with being wrong, but this is what I think. Kind of keep that mindset. Uh, when we put we when I say we, eh, I've seen we as Indians, we have this common thought. We always put, I am thinking that this is what's happening. No. I think this is what Krishna is saying. I think this is what Prabhupada is saying. No. You say what you think. Don't put the word think or maybe there. Just say it out loud. That's fine. Even if you're wrong, that doesn't make a difference. You thought it was right, and that's more than enough for you to be strong on this. Just a thought. I always point it out to myself whenever I get in that mode of, oh, I think this is happening or this may be happening. And I tell myself, no thinking or maybe. This is what is happening. Yes.
Thank you. Hare
Yes,
Krishna.
Shalini Mataji, you had your hand up.
Yes, Prabhu. I think so, Prabhuji. For me, I think it is in the mode of goodness.
Okay.
And the reason I think so, because when Dronacharya asked for the thumb, right, he did not think twice. He was not selfish at that time. And he considered him as a spiritual master, even though he did not get the direct teaching from him. He made an idol of him and he worshipped him. For him, that was a spiritual master. And when a
Okay.
spiritual master asks something, you have to surrender yourself completely to him. You don't ask
Yeah.
questions. And that was the mode he was in, complete surrender. And if the
Okay.
master asks, you give it. And that is your service towards your master. Hare Krishna.
Okay, so we have one vote to passion, one vote to goodness. Anybody else have any thoughts? Where did the sacrifice of Eklavya sit?
No, I echo with Shalini Mataji Prabhuji, because I think
Okay.
that was in the mode of goodness. Obviously, he did it as a service to his Gurudev. His Gurudev asked him, and he did not even without hesitating cut off the thumb and offered. And then that obviously that was the whole purpose. Well, I mean, he was very good at what he did, obviously, and Gurudev did not want him to be a competition to Arjuna, but that's the sacrifice he made because he asked and he was asked. No questions, he did not
Yeah.
ask any questions further.
Okay. Yeah. Two for goodness, one for passion. Any more thoughts, anyone?
Yeah, Prabhuji, he was not selfish. He thought about his guru, because he didn't have anything to offer, and the guru asked for his thumb. He just gave it, like out of goodness, out of love for his guru.
Yeah. Okay. And also, when you answer, just look at these definitions Krishna is giving of sacrificing the different modes, and try to put tick marks. That was he standing? Was he there up to the mark on each of these things? Was he performing it according to the scriptures? Was it just a matter of duty? Was there no reward expected? Or was it out of pride? So just try to put these things also in them, and then try to see if there was anything that was lacking or was missing, or was, just think about that also. Anybody else? Anyone? So we have three for goodness, one for passion. No? Okay. So Eklavya, we have to look at the Mahabharat's detail and the context. Okay. When Eklavya, he appears to the modern society as a self-made man. Okay. He looks like, oh yeah, he's self-made. He stood up. He learned the whole archery by himself. A self-taught student. And this modern culture that we all live in is a culture of independence. Whereas the Vedic culture that we want to live in is of interdependence. Right? Independence means I can do anything and everything, and I don't need anything from anyone. Just like Eklavya could learn archery without Drona and could learn archery better, he could learn it without Drona, he could learn it better, right? So without Drona's blessings and so without his knowledge, right? So this idea that, hey, I can learn it by myself without submitting to a teacher seems like very rebellious and very attractive to the modern society. That's why he's very often treated as a hero in the society. But if you look at the Mahabharat's context, Eklavya was in a Nishada tribe. The Nishada tribe was always engaging in very antisocial activities. They were always creating troubles for law-abiding citizens, and also for the administration of the Kuru dynasty. So, so, uh, so they were never satisfied that, hey, this is not the right position. I want to be somewhere else. So they were never satisfied with their own position. So they were creating troubles for others. So that is why when Eklavya approached Dronacharya to be admitted in his Gurukul, Dronacharya told him, I have been given shelter by the Kuru kings. Obviously, right? Dronacharya was accepted by Bhishma to become the teacher of the Kuru kids. So he had been given shelter by the Kuru dynasty. So he said, I cannot work against the Kuru dynasty. So I cannot, because you and your society is against the Kuru dynasty, and I'm being supported by the Kuru dynasty. I cannot take you up as a student, right? So that was one thing to remember. So there was a reason why Dronacharya refused it. Some people call Dronacharya to be very, oh, he was materialistic. He was always he wanted the Kurus because they were rich and the famous kids. But then that was not the case. If Dronacharya was so selfishly minded, he wouldn't have taught Drishtadyumna. If you all know, Drishtadyumna was born with the prophecy that he will be the killer of Drona. Would somebody teach a person all his tricks whom he knows that he's going to kill him later on in the life? No. So Dronacharya was quite liberal in that sense, right? So one who was qualified, he was ready to give that knowledge, right? But when he felt that somebody was not qualified or would misuse this knowledge, he was not going to give that knowledge to him. That's why Dronacharya told no to Eklavya, that no, I will not teach you, right? So the Eklavya went away disappointed, but then he was very determined to learn. He made an effigy, a clay form of Drona, and he learned by that, right? Some people say that he would also hide in the trees and learn what Dronacharya was teaching to Kauravas and the Pandavas and so forth. So he practiced and he learned. So one day, what happened was that when all the students were practicing in the forest, they saw that a dog's mouth was sewn up by arrows. So that demonstrates a very, a very expert archer. And then, the story was that Eklavya had been practicing his archery, and then this dog was barking. So irritated Eklavya just shot some arrows and kind of shut down the dog. So Arjun saw this and he was very amazed that, oh my God, there's such a good archer somewhere hiding. There's this extraordinary competence somewhere, right? So he wanted to know who could have done such a thing, right? Eklavya, then Eklavya came forward and he said, oh, wait, I'm Eklavya, I'm your student. And then Drona thought very deeply, right? So somebody might say that, oh, he was concerned about Arjun, his favorite student, right? And he had made up his mind that I'll make Drona had promised Arjuna that he'll make him the greatest archer. So in order to protect his honor, he cunningly asked Eklavya for his thumb. So, but then Drona's purpose was much more deeper and noble. Drona was thinking that such extraordinary competence, if given to a person who has no character, will eventually do more harm to the society than good. As I mentioned earlier, Eklavya was from a Nishad tribe, which were very antisocial in nature. So if you give expertise to somebody who is so antisocial, they're going to create so much more havoc in the society. You can see this in today's world nowadays. People who are very good speakers, they can fool millions. And there is no dearth of examples in there. There are so many those so-called fake babas who are able to fool millions and trick them of their money and so many other nonsense things they do. So a person, an average person, if he gets some skills, he will use it averagely. But if a person who's got some extraordinary competence, but then his or her character is not good, that person will not use those skills to the best capacity. He'll be a more harm to the society. That is why he took away, Dronacharya took away Eklavya's thumb. Right? So the thing that I wanted to highlight here was the first thing, if you notice now, going back to our, let's see the first mode of goodness. We said it's in a mode of goodness. The sacrifice has to be performed according to the direction of the scripture. Direction of the scripture. What is the direction of the scripture in relation to a teacher? Right? It's service to your guru. Brahmacharis have to be so austere that if your guru forgets to call you for lunch or your food, you don't eat. Can you just imagine the extent of austerity these, brahmacharis do? And not just brahmachari, all the ashramas, they have all their austerities. But the basic essence is to follow exactly what your guru is asking you to do. In the 11th canto, there is this verse that Krishna tells Uddhav. Is it Krishna telling Uddhav? Sorry, I don't remember. But it says, Tasmad Gurum Prapaddeta Jigyasu Shreya Uttavam. Sabde Parisha Nishtantam Brahmani Upshamashraya. That Tasmad Gurum Prapaddeta. You have to surrender to a guru. So now, having told you the backstory, do you think he had surrendered to Dronacharya? No. Because Dronacharya clearly told him, no, you cannot learn archery. But he went and still learned archery. That was a clear, avoidance of your guru's order. You were refusing to follow his guru's order. He considered Dronacharya his guru. So right there, he didn't check in this first box of according to the direction of the scriptures. He might have checked these other two boxes. There was no reward expecting, or as a matter of, he might have been doing that, but he didn't check the most important box. That was not according to the direction of scripture. And more importantly, there was some sense of pride in him that I will show my guru, I'll show Dronacharya that I have become such a good student. Having pride in serving your guru, when that pride comes out of humility, is good. But when that pride comes out of this sense of arrogance, that I'll show my guru, I'll show him how good I am, what does he think? That's a strict no. We cannot do that. Sometimes, disciples take pride that, hey, I will give my life to Prabhupada, I'll give my life to my guru, and I'll do everything for him. And people become very happy by, oh, yes, I did so much. My Guru Maharaj gave me this opportunity to serve and I did it. And they become very happy. But that's not the pride of a mode of passion. That's a pride that comes out of transcendence. That's a transcendental pride. Even in Goloka, there are some gopis that become pride. They have pride in, hey, we are doing so much good service or something. So that's a different thing. So to answer the question that I had put, it was more in a mode of passion than in a mode of goodness. There was some amount of pride there. And so that's the story of Eklavya. And as I said, people, sometimes you all are very well versed with scriptures, but then in the common society, I've seen people glorifying these negative characters, like Ravan. And so I was hearing something, and somebody was saying that, oh, Ravan was such a pious person that he went and fought with God just to protect his sisters, because his sister was disrespected, just to take revenge against the disrespect to his sister. He was so pious, he went and fought with God. No, that was not the case. If such a lusty woman like Supan Khan, she had no concern. She didn't go to tell Ravan that, I was humiliated. No, she went and said, there's a very beautiful lady out there who should be your queen. See, she aroused the lusty desires of Ravan. Ravan didn't go to fight for his wife, for his sister's respect. No, that was not the case. But people don't understand the scriptures fully, and they just could give whatever thoughts they come to their mind. Oh yeah, Ravan was amazing, Karan was amazing, Duryodhan was amazing. What did Krishna do? Krishna was just, he was a trickster, because the knowledge of scriptures is fully missing. Okay, so that was just my thoughts around Eklavya and his sacrifice. But I just wanted to bring it as an example. Yes, somebody was saying something.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I thought it's also important to touch on Dronacharya's, intentions. like what I understand was that he was Dronacharya was impressed with Eklavya's skills, but also saw him as a potential threat to his like royal pupils, and and so it's raises complex questions about Dronacharya's request and whether it was just or ethical to ask Eklavya to to cut off his thumb. So I thought that should be brought up also.
Well, I as I mentioned, Prabhu, that was not the main thought that was going on in Dronacharya's mind. That I have to protect the benefit of the royal dynasty, Kurus and Pandavas. That was not going on in his mind. What was going on in his mind is that this person is of a low character, and he's got something. Just imagine, like, people are scared that which Korea is that, north or south, whichever. That guy has a nuclear weapon and he's crazy. Someday he'll just say, "Oh, let me shoot a nuclear weapon." You cannot give something very valuable to a person who is not intelligent enough. And that was the case with Eklavya. He was coming from a Nishad tribe, which was very antisocial. They were known for their antisocial activity. And if you give them such a valuable gift of being an extraordinary archer, they are going to create havoc in the society. They'll never use it for their benefit or for the benefit of the society. So it was not on Drona's mind that I have to protect the Kurus and because they are feeding me. No, that was not on his mind. At least that wasn't the most important thought on his mind. Obviously, I'm not fully versed with what was going on in his mind at that time, but that was not the most important thing on his mind. He was telling him that you are not qualified to be a Kshatriya archer. You don't have Kshatriya qualities. Don't take up this vocation. Don't take up this job of being an archer. Okay. So he didn't have that thought, Prabhu. At least, as I said, not the main thought. That was not the main thought on Dronacharya's mind for asking Eklavya for his tongue. He saw that, and another example I gave, right, that he shut the dog with his arrows. The dog had his mouth full with arrows. That again shows that how you can have a sense of cruelty in you, right? Why would somebody do that? I can understand that was a very good feat to happen. Barking is a natural instinct of a dog, right? Why would I be cruel sewing the mouth because he was disturbing me? Once again, there was some sense of pride there that, oh, how dare you disturb me in my practice of archery. So all the attributes that Eklavya had demonstrated were not favorable for him being an expert archer. So that had to be clarified. Kshatriyas have to have some very good qualities. We'll read it in the 18th chapter. Kshatriyas have very, very specific qualities. Now all these systems are messed up. But in the olden days, 5,000 years ago, all these four sections of the society were very well defined. The qualities were very well defined. And if you don't have those qualities internally, externally you might be the best, but it doesn't help. So at that time, the society was more, you can say, more orderly in comparison to today, from a Varnashrama perspective.
Okay. So ultimately, you're saying that this act was in the mode of passion. Is that right?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay. Because from based on like readings, it's like one can argue that it was considered in the mode of goodness. It was like a selfless act. He was respectful to his spiritual master. Done with the pure intentions without expecting anything in return. So there's that argument also, but thank you.
I agree with you. There's this argument. See, he exhibited extraordinary obedience to his spiritual master, to his martial teacher, by giving his thumb at that time. But if he really had so much respect for Dronacharya, why did he not obey his instruction for the first time? For the first time when he met Dronacharya told him, "You are not qualified to be a Kshatriya archer. Don't take up to the archery." Right? Why did he not obey Drona's instructions at that time? If somebody has to be glorified as an ideal disciple, as a guru bhakta, then you should follow all the instructions of the spiritual master. Selective obedience can often be deceptive. If some people, I've met many people, they say, oh, I like this section of Bhagavad Gita, but others I don't like, so I'll take up this section. Or even when the people come to Bhakti, they come say, oh no, I like everything in temple, I like the deities, but I don't like people dancing in front of deities. That's not it. It's either you take the whole thing or you don't take anything. It's not, there is no selectivity. The selectivity is actually coming from my inner, those negativities, for example, deception and pride that, hey, I know what is right, those kind of things. So when it comes to obedience, it has to be full.
Okay. Yeah, you have a deeper understanding of the story, but in general, people
I know,
think that it reflects like values of duty, loyalty, sacrifice, righteousness of duty, things like that. So this is a different perspective you're sharing with us.
And if you see it from one perspective, another perspective, Eklavya was actually protected by Dronacharya from doing bad karma. Just like people, when why you must know it already, that there is capital punishment all over the world. People are hanged to death because in our Vedic understanding, once you have done a very heinous crime, you will, if you continue to live in that same body, you are going to collect so much more baggage of karma that it will just make your next life miserable after that. So you are given a very strong punishment so that you can pay for your karma and your next life doesn't become so bad. Similarly, Eklavya, Dronacharya understanding that, hey, you don't have the right mindset. You might be the best archer, but you don't have the right mindset to become an archer. He protected him from the future from doing this. But let me tell you one more thing. Eklavya didn't stop there. Eklavya went on to learn again with his other finger, and try to again become competent. And he decided to fight for Kauravas eventually in the war. Right? But then there was some other things going on in the background. Krishna challenged him for a battle and all that. I wouldn't go into those details, but that's a whole story in itself. But so sometimes some things that seem very heavy and harsh on us might actually be for our benefit. But in that mindset of passion and ignorance, I don't see it as my benefit. Right? Sometimes Krishna does things, and I say, Krishna, why did you do this? I invested money and it was just the guy I gave it to, he just ran away with the money. And I said, Krishna, why did you do this? Krishna is telling me, be more sensible in investments. This is only a small amount of money that guy ran away with. He could have ran away with your whole bank account. So we don't understand the whole picture. Only Krishna understands it. So similarly, a guru understands the whole situation. But then Eklavya didn't listen to him even after that, and he went on to learn with his other fingers. So so he didn't have the character, but he had the competence. I just summarize that.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, Dronacharya was their martial teacher, not spiritual master of Pandavas.
Yep,
Pandavas' spiritual master was Dhaumya Muni, Dhaumya Rishi.
Dhaumya Rishi, yes, he was their spiritual teacher, yes.
Hare Krishna. Thank
you. But if Dronacharya he was a Kshatriya, he had Kshatriya quality, like he knew all these art of warfare, but he was also a Brahmana himself. So he was in the top class of the society by himself also. And and then Shastras are teaching about, in a broader sense, you have to also, whomever you are surrendering to, you have to have full obedience to that, whatever you're learning from that. Even Krishna and Balram, they went to Sandipani Muni to learn. And this was not like Sandipani Muni was only teaching them philosophy. Sandipani Muni told them to go and cut wood in the forest. Sandipani, he was doing all sorts of things. So Krishna cannot say that, hey, philosophy, it's okay. Knowledge is okay. Spiritual knowledge is okay. But you're not my boss. You're not my guru for these other things. I won't listen to you. No, Krishna was fully ready. So there is nothing like selective obedience when you're going to a teacher. Yeah.
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So that was the thought of sacrifice. We're at 8:17.
Prabhuji, I had just one question on that same
Sure.
Eklavya. So, Prabhuji, we have also read when we were doing the chapter of mode of goodness, we fluctuate, right? We swing between the mode of passion, goodness, and ignorance, right?
Mhm.
So each activity can be compartmentalized in that particular mode, right? So in the case of Eklavya, that particular activity, that particular episode where he did not listen to Dronacharya, that was in a mode of passion and ignorance. But at the same time, this particular episode where he selflessly gave his thumb to Dronacharya, even though he did not accept him as his disciple, but he accepted him as his guru. So from his side it was no, but from his side it was always there, yes, right? So he did not accept, but he accepted.
Yes.
So don't we think this particular, because I was only thinking from this episode about giving the thumb to his guru, complete surrender of this particular episode. So this episode is in the mode of goodness, but other episode that you are talking about where he did to dog, that was completely in the mode of ignorance, doing not daring to it, that was in the mode of passion and ignorance. So he was fluctuating, right, Prabhu? Or it's like completely in the mode of passion he was.
Yeah,
Can we?
you're right. You're right. Yes. So see, we all in this, we all, so we all are in a mode of goodness. And it's not like I don't get in a mode of passion or ignorance. Many times of the day, I am in ignorance and passion also. But what is the predominating mode in me? Or at least what am I sincerely trying to achieve is valuable, is what is considered, right? You all are in a mode of goodness. You all are doing, you're maintaining your families, you're doing your sadhana complete, 16 rounds or whatever number you do. So you are very sincerely trying to be in a mode of goodness. But that doesn't mean you don't have a mode of ignorance and passion. Similarly, Eklavya's most pervasive mode was passion. But yes, he also had some things in a mode of goodness. Everybody has it. Even Duryodhana had some things in a mode of goodness when Ashwathama killed the 5 sons of the Pandavas and came to Duryodhana with their heads. Duryodhana was disgusted. He said, "What did you do here? This is not a sign of a Kshatriya." So he was in a mode of goodness at that time. We didn't approve of what Ashwathama did. But what we are talking about here is what is the predominant mode or mood at that in a person. And that's how we look at a person, right? That's why it's always said, right? Devotees, even though sometimes they do some things wrong, we don't blaspheme them because their predominant mode is goodness. They are very sincerely trying to come into goodness and go beyond goodness. So that should be our focus primarily. But yeah, I agree with you. He had some qualities, obviously, that were in a mode of goodness also, and also in the mode of ignorance. Who knows?
Thank you, Prabhu, for clarifying.
You're welcome. Okay, so now coming to austerities. So now the next 3 is austerity. Austerities are so. Why do we do austerity? I just want to give an overview before we jump into austerities. The purpose of austerity, first and foremost, it sharpens our spiritual purposefulness. What I mean by that, let's take an example again from Mahabharata. When Pandavas were living in the forest, they had been exiled to the forest by Duryodhan. They were passing through, and then they were in the Himalayas, and they reached the area of Kuber, who's the demigod who keeps all he's, I think, the treasurer of the demigods. So they reached to that area, and he had beautiful gardens and a beautiful palace, and Kuvera invited the Pandavas to live in the palace and enjoy the garden and so forth. And he said, "You can live as long as you desire." The Pandavas were technically still in a forest exile, but then this forest was very heavenly, right, which was very, very comfortable. And then the austere life in comparison with the earthly forest that they were passing through, or they were sent to exile to. After some time, when they were staying there, Bhima and Arjun, they approached Yudhishthir and told him, "We have to go back to the earthly forest." Why? Yudhishthir asked. He said, "If you continue to remain in this comfort, you will forget the atrocities that the Kauravas have done on us. It will deaden your Kshatriya spirit, right? And you will be left unprepared for the war that is coming against the Kauravas." So they needed to be prepared in war against the Kauravas. They had this inkling that, hey, now Duryodhana is not going to give us our kingdom back so easily. We have to fight. So to keep that spirit strong, they did austerity of living in a very earthly and a forest, like what we see. And they gave up the heavenly forest and the heavenly palace of Kuvera. So austerity can make us very spiritually purposeful. It can give us that very spiritual direction that we need. That is why austerities are so important. The austerities are a major part Prabhupada has given us, whichever ashrama we are in. So that's the first thing by how austerities help us. Second thing is, austerities can help us, or it's similar to the first one, as I'm saying, but they help us. It acts as an insurance against being complacent, against being satisfied. I'm okay. No, there's nothing like okay in bhakti. You have to be austere. You do some austerity. Prabhupada has given us so much. We fast on Ekadashi, appearance, disappearance days of gurus, of many teachers, and then we do our chantings and reading. So much austerity. Austerity can serve as an insurance against being satisfied and being. Sorry, I lost you all again. I don't know. My connection is acting weird. We are at 8:25. I think I spoke about austerity, but we can pick it up next week. It might require some, because I don't want to talk about austerity and then in the next class go on to the 3 different types of austerities. I want to keep them both combined so that you can relate to both the parts. Why we do austerities and what are the more different modes. So